Chapter 61. An Indescribable Guilt. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 61. An Indescribable Guilt. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Why? Are you scared? Long Siju forcefully held the back of her head with his large hand. Their foreheads were pressed against each other's, and their breaths mingled together. Aren't you scared? Su Qianxuan really found this man insane. She was almost scared to death because she was worried that Lan Qingqing would hear them. What do you think? Long Siju kissed her small mouth again. Su Qianxuan widened her eyes in disbelief. He gripped her waist with force and pressed her against his body. Su Qianxuan's body became extraordinarily sensitive because she was too nervous. All of her senses were magnified by multiple folds. She could even clearly hear the sound of Lan Qingqing tidying her clothes in the next cubicle. She then heard Lan Qingqing washing and drying her hands. Su Qianxuan immediately wanted to push away the man who was embracing her, but Long Siju did not have any intention of letting her go. His lips were already moving downwards, and she could feel that the man before her was rather excited. Of course, she meant his body. A sudden knock on the door shocked Su Qianxuan so much to the extent that she thought her heart was about to jump out of her chest. She immediately held the man who was touching her chest, and whispered, "No." Long Siju suddenly chuckled softly, as if he just encountered something very interesting. "Miss Su, are you done?" Even though Lan Qingqing sounded very gentle, her gaze was extremely cold. This was because she knew very well that Long Siju was inside the cubicle with Su Qianxuan. "No. I'm having a stomachache. Miss Lan, you can leave first." "Ah. Oh, a stomachache. Do you want me to buy you some medication?" When Lan Qingqing heard Su Qianxuan's soft moan, she balled up her hands tightly, and her nails sank into her flesh. Even though she knew that the young woman was only a tool to Long Siju, when she thought about how the woman got to have S*X with Long Siju while being pressed underneath his body, she almost went crazy from jealousy. "No need. I'll be done in a while, Miss Lan. You can leave first." This time, Su Qianxuan braved herself and held Long Siju's head in place to keep him from fooling around. Even so, she was barely able to speak normally. "All right then, I'll go back first." No matter how indignant Lan Qingqing was, she still had to leave because she did not want to lose Long Siju. When Lan Qingqing finally left, Su Qianxuan's tensed body immediately turned limp, and Long Siju held her in his embrace. Su Qianxuan suddenly remembered the reason she came to this place, and she was unwilling to put off the matter for even one more second. "Young master, my younger brother's alone in the hospital right now and I'm really worried. Can I go and take care of him? Now that we only have each other to rely upon, if I were to leave him there alone, he'll be too pitiful." Su Qianxuan took the initiative to wrap her arms around his neck. Su Qianxuan finished everything she wanted to say in one breath. She could feel his sharp, oppressive gaze, and she did not dare to look into his eyes. She felt an indescribable guilt when she thought about how she deliberately pleased him for her brother's sake. "So, this is why you started taking the initiative to get close to me since yesterday. Everything you've done for me, it was all for this." Long Siju clutched her chin and forced her to raise her head to look at him. I don't want to listen to lies." Long Siju's voice was very soft, but every word was like a hammer that forcefully pounded on Su Qianxuan's heart. She was so frantic that she did not know what to do. Chapter 62. Not that easy. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Chapter 62. Not that easy. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Young master, Su Qianxuan's mind was in a mess. She was almost breaking down after waiting for 8 days. This was why she decided to please him, hoping that he would let her take care of her younger brother. However, when she saw that he was having a headache, she was no longer thinking of her plan. She just wanted to lessen his pain. Tell me. Long Siju continued to increase the strength in his hand, which was clutching her jaw. His eyes were frighteningly cold, and they were even emanating a faint blue light. Yes. Su Qianxuan closed her eyes and admitted to it. You. Very well. Long Siju stood up abruptly and placed her on the basin by the side. He removed his belt and tied her hands behind her back with it. Young master, don't. The only thing I want is to take care of my younger brother. I'm begging you, I wasn't thinking of anything else. Long Siju stared at her small face, which was pale with fear. He suddenly recalled the words she told Tang Zui earlier. How can I possibly fall in love with Long Siju? If it's possible, I wish to give birth to a child right away and end the contract between us. Very well, this little thing had been pushing my boundaries again and again. I'm going to engrave this in her mind, the price she has to pay for playing petty tricks on me. You want to leave me? It's not that easy. Long Siju turned her around all of a sudden and pressed her against the mirror opposite him with her back facing him. He was very wanton, not taking the woman's feelings into consideration at all. Because they were at a public place, Su Qianxuan could only bite her lips firmly to stop herself from making any sound. She bit so hard that she tore her lower lip, and blood dripped down along it. Long Siju directly tossed her onto the floor. He then opened the door and left. Su Qianxuan sat on the floor, her hands still tied by his belt. She did not even have the strength to stand up right now. Although he was very wanton this time, she did not find it as painful as the previous times they had **x. It must be because the painkiller I took this morning is still in effect. There was a knock on the door, and Su Qianxuan was taken aback. She nervously huddled herself up even tighter. It's me, Yi Gu's cold voice traveled from the outside. Su Qianxuan was so scared that she suddenly burst into tears when she heard Yi Gu's voice. Yi Gu opened the door and stepped inside. He felt like his heart was being thrusted by a knife when he saw her in such a flustered state. He clenched his fist tightly. Yi Gu squatted down and untied the belt around her wrists. Once Su Qianxuan regained her freedom, she hugged herself tightly. How are you feeling? Did you get injured anywhere? Yi Gu inquired in a soft voice. He extended his hand to caress her long hair, but retracted it halfway through. Su Qianxuan shook her head and begged, Yi Gu, can you go out for a while? Leave me alone for a minute, just a minute. Yi Gu stood up and left. He closed the door for her. A minute later, Su Qianxuan opened the door and stepped out. She had already cleaned her face, and a few strands of wet, black hair were stuck on her small, pale face. The cut on her lower lip looked very obvious. She lowered her head just like a child who had been wronged. The young master. Yi Gu fixed his gaze on her. Strong emotions were raging inside his chest. I know. You can bring me there. Su Qianxuan's voice was very soft. She herself was not sure what she was feeling at that moment. Her feelings were not important. Nobody cared about them. Even she did not care about them anymore. Su Qianxuan was merely disappointed that she could not make Long Siju agree to her request to let her take care of Jie. Yi Gu turned and walked forward. He suddenly raised his hand, which was covered with bandages, balled it up and covered his mouth with it. He tried very hard to suppress the blood that he was about to throw up. Chapter 63. A competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 63. A competition. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Su Qianxuan was brought to a racetrack in the resort this time. Long Outyan and the others had left, and only the younger ones were here to have some fun. Lan Qingcheng was wearing a red equestrian outfit and standing next to Long Siju. They looked like a match made in heaven. Tang Zui saw Su Qianxuan walking over. He quickly approached her and asked, "Do you want to change into an equestrian outfit? We're racing horses, why don't you join us?" Su Qianxuan was obviously not in the mood to ride a horse. She shook her head and said dejectedly, "I feel like going back first." Tang Zui sighed internally when he saw how she looked like. What happened between the two of them again? Ju was in a pretty good mood earlier, but it changed completely after he returned from the bathroom. Other than Lan Qingqing, no one dared to go within 3 meters of him. "Hey, don't leave. We're all young people, and it's pretty fun here. Why don't you watch us instead? Horse racing is quite interesting." He did not dare to let the young woman leave without Long Siju's order. Tang Zui pulled Su Qianxuan over and sat her down. Long Siju returned to the rest area too. He sat there and watched the others race. All the while, Lan Qingqing was by his side. She fetched him a bottle of water like a good fiancé. "Chick, do you want to drink something?" Tang Zui saw how miserable Su Qianxuan looked, and was starting to pity her. "No, thanks." Su Qianxuan pursed her lips tightly and shook her head. When Tang Zui saw how awkward the atmosphere between the two of them was, he did not know what to do either. Long Siju's gaze was fixed on the racetracks in front of him. He did not even glance at Su Qianxuan ever since she came over. Su Qianxuan did not know how much time had passed when she heard someone suggest to have one of the girls compete with Lan Qingqing. No matter who won, Long Siju had to grant the winner a request. The person who suggested this was obviously trying to please Lan Qingqing. Everyone knew how skilled she was when it came to horse racing. The person specifically emphasized that Long Siju would have to grant the request no matter what it is. Su Qianxuan immediately looked at Long Siju when she heard this. He was still staring expressionlessly at the racetracks, as though the conversation that was going on had nothing to do with him. Lan Qingqing had already stood up. The smile on her face was extremely bright, because she knew that she would definitely win. "If I win." She blushed a little when she thought of the request that she would be making. She was determined to win the competition. A thought also appeared in Su Qianxuan's mind. If she won, would he agree to let her take care of her younger brother? Lan Qingqing's gaze fell upon Su Qianxuan. Even though she regarded Su Qianxuan in disdain deep down inside, she invited her with a sincere expression. "Miss Su, you do know how to ride a horse, right? Why don't you compete with me?" Su Qianxuan did not expect Lan Qingqing to ask her. She subconsciously glanced at Long Siju, but the man was not looking at her at all. She could only look at Tang Zui and ask, "Can I join the competition?" "About this? I think you can." Tang Zui asked a question instead of giving an answer. He did not have the rights to make this decision. Long Siju was still deaf to the situation. "Then, if I win, can I make a request?" "Of course, that's the bet. But if you want Sir Ju to kiss you, then that's a no." Everyone laughed at the joke. Su Qianxuan's face reddened all of a sudden. She quickly shook her head. Lan Qingqing sneered. "This young woman wants to win against me. She's definitely delusional. She would let this young woman know today that she, Lan Qingqing, was the only woman who was good enough for Long Siju." Chapter 64. She has to win. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 64. She has to win. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Su Qianxuan was wearing a dress, and it was inconvenient to ride a horse in that, so she went to change into an equestrian outfit too. She chose a black one. Everyone was astonished by her appearance when she walked out. The young woman looked a lot taller with the white shirt, black vest, and matching equestrian boots. Only then did everyone realize that this young woman was also breathtakingly beautiful. But her beauty was different from Lan Qingqing's. She had an ethereal aura, which could rarely be found on other women. The most precious thing about her was how pure and natural she looked. It was as if just looking at her could ease feelings of irritation and depression in one's heart. It was a comforting sight. Lan Qingqing was beautiful, but when compared with Su Qianxuan, she looked stiff and soulless. "Bring my horse over," Long Siju ordered Tang Zui in a soft voice. Tang Zui's eyes brightened, and he immediately did as he was told. He led Long Siju's horse out. It was a thoroughbred with a sturdy and beautiful body shape, coal-dot-like black fur and extremely lively eyes. Lan Qingqing was a little pleased with herself when she saw this. Long Siju had never allowed anyone to touch his horse. Just as she was about to thank Long Siju, Tang Zui led the horse to Su Qianxuan's side. Lan Qingqing's expression stiffened. She turned and pretended to interact with her horse, but she was actually staring at Su Qianxuan from the corner of her eyes. A murderous look flashed past her eyes as she looked at Su Qianxuan's small, innocent and beautiful face. It seemed like she had underestimated this woman after all. She would definitely not let anyone threaten her position. Today, she would tear this SL*T to shreds in this race ground. Chick, do take some time to interact with it first. It's very intelligent. It's also very fast. Su Qianxuan looked at the handsome black horse in front of her. She bravely extended her hand to touch its head. She whispered, "Please help me today. If we win, I'll treat you to some grass." Long Siju sat at the rest area and smoked. The taste of nicotine finally calmed him down a little. Lan Qingqing mounted her horse first. Su Qianxuan imitated Lan Qingqing's actions and got on the black horse as well. "Miss Su, I won't go easy on you." Lan Qingqing gave Su Qianxuan a mischievous look. "I want to win too, Miss Lan." Su Qianxuan was already breaking out in a cold sweat. This was because she did not know how to ride a horse at all. Tang Zui kept on gesturing at Su Qianxuan to cheer her on without even realizing it. Even though he knew that Su Qianxuan and Long Siju would never end up together, he still liked this pure-hearted young woman from the bottom of his heart. Su Qianxuan smiled at Tang Zui before glancing cautiously at Long Siju. Someone shouted, "Ready," and Su Qianxuan immediately came back to her senses. She pulled the horse's reins and looked straight to the front. The moment someone shouted, "Go," Lan Qingqing took the lead and dashed forward. Su Qianxuan's horse dashed forward as well. Lan Qingqing was very fast. Her posture when riding the horse was also beautiful, giving the audience strong visual enjoyment. Everyone was cheering in excitement. However, Su Qianxuan's posture was completely off. She had not even ridden a horse before. Her body was swaying from side to side. If it had not been because of the black horse's intelligence, she would have fallen off the horse. "Oh shit! This chick doesn't know how to ride a horse," Tang Zui exclaimed. The people around him also started whispering to one another. At that moment, Long Siju stood up at. The cigarette in his hand fell on the ground. He fixed his gaze on the tiny figure who was riding his horse. The track was not long, and it was in a U shape. When Su Qianxuan saw that Lan Qingqing was in the leading position, she gave the horse's stomach a sudden and forceful kick. The black horse felt the pain from the kick. Without caring about the person on its back, it sped up and dashed forward. Su Qianxuan could only hold on to the reins tightly, barely preventing herself from falling. She had to win for her younger brother's sake. Just as Su Qianxuan was about to catch up with Lan Qingqing sneered all of a sudden. She threw out a silver needle, stabbing the black horse in the corner of its eye. The horse immediately went crazy and started to hiss, raising its front hooves high above the ground. Su Qianxuan failed to steady herself, and she fell from the horse's back. She felt as if her organs were being smashed into pieces. The black horse continued hissing because of the immense pain. It raised its hooves high and was about to step on Su Qianxuan. Chapter 65. Getting Hurt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 65. Getting Hurt Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. When Su Qianxuan saw the hooves above her, she shut her eyes in resignation. I'm definitely going to die this time. At that crucial moment, Long Siju grabbed the metal chair beside him and hurled it at the racetrack. At the same time, he jumped across the railing and dashed toward Su Qianxuan's direction. Everyone was startled by the scene. Long Siju's movements were as agile as that of a cheetah in the jungle. With a loud bang, the chair hit the black horse before it could step on Su Qianxuan. The black horse yelped as its tall and sturdy body fell onto the ground. It wailed in agony. Lan Qingcheng, who was next to Su Qianxuan, was affected by the situation as well. Her horse was in shock, and if it had not been because of her good horsemanship, she would have already been thrown off her horse's back. Su Qianxuan saw Long Siju's extremely enraged face before she completely lost consciousness the next second. Su Qianxuan had a very extended dream. She dreamed of the time she spent with the Su family. Back then, she was genuinely happy. Among his 3 grandchildren, her grandfather loved her the most. And even though he was very fond of her, he also had high expectations of her and always taught her various life lessons. At that time, her father was caring and loving, and her mother stayed at home to take care of the family. She was showered with a lot of love every day. However, everything changed after that. Her world, which was filled with sunshine, turned into complete darkness. Everyone who used to care for her turned into demons. They extended their monstrous claws and mercilessly tore her world into shreds. Just as she was feeling extremely agonized, a pair of large hands gently caressed her face. Those hands were extremely warm. Su Qianxuan slowly opened her eyes. An unfamiliar female face entered her sight. The woman looked at her with a smile. "Young Mistress Su, you're finally awake. Where am I?" Su Qianxuan was still slightly confused. "You're in the hospital. You've been unconscious for a whole day." The young nurse poured her a cup of water. Su Qianxuan tried to sit up, but her body was aching intensely. When the young nurse noticed that, she quickly put down the mug and helped Su Qianxuan up. The young nurse then placed a blanket behind Su Qianxuan for her to lean against it. "Drink some water first." The young nurse handed her the cup. Su Qianxuan was indeed thirsty. She took the mug and drank all the water inside. She then remembered what happened on the race ground. She still lost the competition in the end. Someone opened the door to the ward. Aunt Qi and Zifan entered the ward together. The moment Aunt Qi stepped into the room, she hurried towards the bed. She asked with an extremely concerned expression, "Young Mistress Su, you're awake. How are you feeling?" "Aunt Qi, I'm fine." Su Qianxuan forced a smile. "How are you fine? You were unconscious for such a long time. The young master is extremely worried. Dr. Zifan, hurry up and examine young Mistress Su. Aunt Qi must be thinking too much. Why would Long Siju worry about me? It's not entirely impossible, though. I still need to bear his child after all." Zifan conducted a very thorough examination. After she was done, she said, "There shouldn't be any major issues. Just rest properly for some time." "Thanks," Su Qianxuan thanked her politely. Noel.n, I'll leave now to report to the young master. Zifan gave Su Qianxuan as well as Aunt Qi a nod before she turned and left the ward. In one of the offices in the hospital, Zifan reported the status of Su Qianxuan's health to Long Siju. Long Siju had a cigarette in his hand. His black eyes were concealed by the smoke, and no one could see the emotions that were hidden underneath. "Young master. Do you want me to find out young Mistress Su's date of ovulation?" Zifan suddenly inquired. Chapter 66. She was already very happy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 66. She was already very happy. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Long Siju took a drag of his cigarette and blew out the smoke. At that moment, he seemed like a yuppie, coupled with his stoically handsome face, he looked even more attractive. Since when were you in the position to concern yourself with my matters? The man's voice was devoid of emotion, but it made Zifan's heart sank. I am sorry. All right, you can leave first. Tang Zui, who had been sitting beside Long Siju and playing with his cell phone, raised his head and said. Zifan bowed before Long Siju and left. Long Siju extinguished the cigarette between his fingers and was about to take another one. Tang Zui looked at the countless cigarette butts in the ashtray and could not stand it anymore. He's obviously worried about Su Qianshuan but is unwilling to visit her. What a contradictory guy. Be calm, if you're worried about that chick, then go and visit her. It's the 15th day of the month and you need to go and see her anyway. Both of you still need to. Ahem. Do that. Long Siju glanced coldly at Tang Zui and lit the cigarette. Su Qianshuan looked over nervously when the ward door was pushed open. When she saw that the person who walked in was Tang Zui, she immediately asked, Young Master Tang, what happened to the horse I rode? Tang Zui thought about how Long Siju smashed the horse to death. He then coughed softly and said, It's injured. It's all my fault. If I hadn't insisted on competing, it wouldn't have gotten injured. Can I go and take a look at it? Su Qianshuan asked apprehensively. There's no need for that, it's just a horse. Oh, by the way, how are you? Tang Zui changed the topic. Even though that horse was Long Siju's favorite, in the end, it ended up getting smashed to death by him. It was quite a dreary and depressing thought. I'm all right. Su Qianshuan still wanted to ask about visiting the horse, but when she thought of Long Siju, she did not press on. She did not have any freedom at that moment. Ah, Ju asked me to talk to you about your wish to visit your younger brother. Ah. You can only visit him once a week. The moment Tang Zui finished speaking, he felt a chill on his back. He turned and saw Long Siju walking in. He laughed drily and immediately turned to face Su Qianshuan again so that he did not have to look at Long Siju. Really? Although Su Qianshuan felt that once a week was too little, she was already very happy that Long Siju agreed to let her visit her younger brother. When she thought about how she was almost stomped to death by the horse, she thought bitterly. Does this count as a blessing in disguise? No matter what, it was still considered a good start. Thank you, young master. Su Qianshuan carefully glanced at the man who just came in. The corners of her pink lips were slightly curved up. Long Siju was originally unhappy that Tang Zui acted according to his own accord. But when he saw how happy the young woman looked, he just glared at Tang Zui and gave his tacit approval to the matter. Tang Zui let out a few dry chuckles. When he realized that there was a subtly magical atmosphere between the two of them, Tang Zui took the hint. He stood up and said, I suddenly remember that I still have a date tonight. I'll make a move first. See you later, chick. Tang Zui gave Aunt Chi a look, and Aunt Chi also mentioned that she had something going on before she left. Su Qianshuan and Long Siju were left alone in the room. Su Qianshuan was gripping onto the blanket tightly due to her nervousness. She raised her head and briefly glanced at the man, who was sitting on the couch, but she did not know what to say to him. Pack up, we're going back, Long Siju suddenly said. Can I take a look at my younger brother first before we leave? After Su Qianshuan finished talking, she suddenly remembered how furious he was earlier over her younger brother's matter. She was scared that he would get angry again, so she immediately explained, my younger brother is autistic. He's not like other people. If he were a normal child, I wouldn't be so worried about him. The last time I went to see him, I saw him a nurse bullying him. I'm really just worried. Chapter 67. He was waiting for you to come. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 67. He was waiting for you to come. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, you only have 20 minutes. Long Siju cut her off. Su Qinshuan froze on the spot. When she returned to her senses and realized that he had agreed to allow her to visit her younger brother, she flashed a surprised smile. Thank you, young master. Su Qinshuan immediately lifted her blanket and was about to get off the bed, but she forgot that she was still injured, and fell on the ground. Su Qinshuan cried out in pain and even started to cough because her chest was aching too much. Long Siju quickly walked over and carried her tiny body off the ground. He furrowed his beautiful eyebrows as he looked at the little thing's face, which was crumpled up in pain. Does it hurt a lot? Even Long Siju himself did not realize how gentle his voice was. Su Qinshuan was afraid that he would no longer let her visit her younger brother, so she forcefully shook her head. It doesn't hurt that much. Su Qinshuan. Long Siju suddenly yelled her name in fury when he saw how she was unwilling to admit it even though she was clearly in pain. This shocked Su Qinshuan. From what she remembered, this was actually the first time that Long Siju had called her by her full name. She widened her black eyes and looked at him. Within a minute, all the top-notch specialists in the hospital had gathered in her ward. Once again, they examined Su Qinshuan inside out. The conclusion of the consultation was, although it was nothing serious, when she fell off the horse, she was still thrown down quite forcefully. So, her body would still ache for a few days. Diovi Ko with a cold expression, Long Siju asked all the specialists to leave. Su Qinshuan stared at him nervously and immediately shifted her gaze away when she met his scarily sharp gaze. Can I go and see my younger brother now? Even though asking the question could possibly enrage him, Su Qinshuan could not hold it back any longer. It had already been 8 days since she last saw Jie. She wondered how he would react. Long Siju suddenly stood up, which shocked the young woman. She blinked as she stared at him with her pitch-black eyes. Long Siju fixed his gaze on her for a few seconds before he turned and left the ward. Su Qinshuan was at a loss for words. I thought that he was going to hit my A*S or something. He left just like that. Even though she did not know the reason, she knew that the man was angry again. Su Qinshuan suddenly realized that she could visit her younger brother now. She immediately changed into the clothes that Aunt Chi had brought, and rushed to Su Jie's ward, enduring the pain. When Su Qinshuan reached her younger brother's ward, Mu Bai was also there. Dr. Mu, how's Jie doing? Su Qinshuan was panting when she walked in. She sized her younger brother up nervously. Mu Bai furrowed his eyebrows when he saw how overly pale she looked and asked, what happened to you? Are you sick? Mu Bai subconsciously reached out to touch her forehead. Su Qinshuan did not avoid his touch either. In the past, Mu Bai took care of her when she was sick, and he had also checked her body temperature the same way. Her forehead was not hot. Su Qinshuan glanced at him. I'm all right. Probably just been too tired recently. How is Jie's condition now? Mu Bai's expression became a lot more solemn when he talked about Su Jie's condition. It's getting worse. I was puzzled at first, but now that I think of it, it could be because he hasn't been able to see you. Every day, he would look in the door's direction with hope and anticipation. Su Qinshuan's heart ached immensely when she heard Mu Bai's words. Her eyes immediately turned red. Jie relies on you very much. Although he can't talk, I can tell that he's waiting for you. Su Jie did not understand why his older sister suddenly disappeared. He must be terrified on the inside. He was afraid that his older sister did not want him anymore. Su Qinshuan felt so sad that she was almost suffocating. She walked towards the bed and hugged her younger brother tightly. She wanted to visit him every single day too, and wished that she could be by his side every single moment. However, right now, she had no choice. Qianxuan, what have you been up to lately? Why are you so busy to the point that you have no time to visit Jie? Chapter 68. Wanted to cry so badly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 68. Wanted to cry so badly. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Mu by New Su Qianxuan. Well, Su Jie was the person she cared for the most. If it was not because she was compelled by circumstances, it would be impossible for her not to visit Su Jie. Sorry, Jie. Sorry, it's all your elder sister's fault. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Su Qianxuan's tears fell. She felt really bad for him, but there was nothing she could do. Even after this, she could only visit him once a week. Qianxuan, you can talk to me if you're facing any difficulty. I can solve it for you. Thank you, Dr. Mu. You've helped me and my younger brother a lot. I wouldn't want to trouble you even more. Su Qianxuan wiped off her tears because she knew that it was useless to cry. She held her younger brother's face, but he refused to look into her eyes. Jie, you know that your elder sister is very busy, right? My classes are going to start very soon, and I have to work part-time too. After this, I will visit you once a week. I promise to bring you your favorite crispy duck every time I visit. Is that okay? Su Qianxuan wanted to cry so badly. I'll take that as a yes if you don't reply. Why don't you cheer up? I can't stay here for long. If you're unhappy, I'll leave now. The moment Su Qianxuan finished talking, Su Jie suddenly hugged her tightly. He was now a grown-up and had great strength. He hugged Su Qianxuan so tightly that she was almost out of breath. Alright, I won't leave yet. I'll stay with you for another 10 minutes, Su Qianxuan said in an extremely soft voice as she gently ran her fingers through his soft, short hair. As Su Jie really loved listening to Su Qianxuan's stories, Su Qianxuan told him his favorite story. Mu Bai felt great sorrow in his heart as he looked at the pair of siblings. Su Jie kept holding his elder sister's hand, and every time Su Qianxuan moved, he would tighten his grip on her out of anxiety. Su Qianxuan knew that her younger brother was afraid that she would leave. However, as the story ended, their time together also came to an end. She had no choice but to leave. She must not make Long Siju even more angry right now. Jie, I have to go now. Before Su Qianxuan could finish her words, Su Jie stood up abruptly in a fit of madness. He then hugged her tightly and shook his head with force. No, he did not want his elder sister to leave. Jie, I have no choice but to go. I'll visit you again. When Mu Bai saw this, he joined Su Qianxuan in convincing Su Jie. However, no matter how hard they tried to comfort and persuade him, Su Jie would not let go of Su Qianxuan. Su Jie, do you want me to never visit you again? I'll get very angry if you continue to behave like this. Let me go. As if Su Qianxuan was suddenly provoked, she shoved Su Jie away. He fell onto the bed. He lowered his head and big droplets of tears streamed down his face. He was crying. Su Qianxuan cried too. She raised her hand to cover her mouth as she shook her head non-stop. Jie, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Su Qianxuan inched backwards. She then ran out of the ward. She cried as she walked because her heart was aching immensely. However, at that moment, she could not allow herself to be soft-hearted. Mu Bai followed her out of the ward. He instructed the nurse to take care of Su Jie before he left to chase after Su Qianxuan. Mu Bai found Su Qianxuan at the stairwell. He knew that she would be there. Back then, she would hide there alone every time she felt sad. Qianxuan, don't be sad. Jie knows that you love him. Mu Bai walked over and placed his hands on her shoulders. Su Qianxuan forcefully wiped away the tears on her face. With her hand pressing on her chest, she asked, Dr. Mu, can you do me a favor? Chapter 69. Why did you cry? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 69. Why did you cry? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, Qianxuan, you can turn to me no matter what happens in the future. I will help you. Mu Bai looked at her earnestly. He had told her the same thing countless times. However, the young woman before him never wanted to cause inconvenience to other people, including him. Thanks. Can you get me some painkillers? Su Qianxuan's whole body, especially her chest, was aching. She was a little worried that her body would not be able to withstand Long Siju's torture. It was better for her to prepare some painkillers beforehand. Painkillers? Why do you need painkillers? Are you injured? Su Qianxuan shook her head. Don't ask me any questions right now. She did not feel like saying anything at that moment. Mu Bai looked at her and swallowed his words. He then let go of her. Wait right here. I'll go and get some for you. When Su Qianxuan came down from the stairs, Long Siju was standing and smoking by his car. He looked at the watch on his wrist from time to time, and he was apparently a little impatient from the prolonged waiting. Before she stepped out of the hospital's main door, Long Siju had already walked towards her. He pulled her by the wrist to the side of the car, opened the door, and shoved her into the car. Long Siju entered the car too, and the car drove away from the hospital. Inside the car, Su Qianxuan sat on the couch beside Long Siju without uttering a word. Long Siju extinguished his cigarette. He then extended his hand, clutched Su Qianxuan's chin and turned her head to force her to look at him. Even though Su Qianxuan had tried her best to compose herself, there were very obvious tear marks on her face. Besides, her long eyelashes were still wet. Why did you cry? Long Siju tightened his grip around her chin. There was a hint of annoyance in his black, profound eyes. Su Qianxuan sensed his anger. Without much thought, she pushed his hand away. Being pushed away in that manner, Long Siju felt an indescribable surge of anger in his chest. Just as he was about to express his fury, the little thing unexpectedly took the initiative to climb onto his thighs. Even though Long Siju was a very calm and collected person, he was stunned by her action. I was wrong. You can spank me, but please, don't take off my pants. Just smack me with my pants on. Su Qianxuan's voice was as soft as a little kitten's, tickling Long Siju's ears. The corners of Long Siju's lips curled up a little. He raised his big hand and landed it on her **s. There was a loud slap, and Su Qianxuan immediately closed her eyes, anticipating the pain. Dov Ko actually, being spanked in the *** did not hurt that bad. It caused more shame than pain. After all, it was such a private body part. The pain was nothing compared to being **ked underneath him. He lifted her body and made her sit on his thighs in a riding position. Su Qianxuan opened her eyes abruptly and stared into his profound black ones. You're not spanking me anymore? Su Qianxuan asked as she blinked her eyes, her eyelashes still wet. Long Siju looked at her small face which still had a little bit of baby fat on it. He then raised his hand to pinch her cheeks. The texture felt so good, to the extent that he suspected the young woman's face to be different from other women's. Even though he had never pinched another woman's cheek before. Then, are you still angry? Su Qianxuan's voice was soft, and it kind of sounded like she was trying to please him. What do you think? You're not going anywhere tonight. I'll punish you another way. Without being aware of it, Long Siju's breaths became heavier when he talked about this. When he thought about how he could have this little thing under his body and toy with her any way he liked that night, he could barely keep his cool. Su Qianxuan knew what he meant. Even though she would be experiencing extreme pain, when she thought about the things that she would be doing with Long Siju, she felt so much shame that she wished she could vanish from this world. Especially right then as she was still lying in his arms. Chapter 70. What do you mean by that? Are you looking down on me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 70. What do you mean by that? Are you looking down on me? Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Su Qianxuan lowered her head and buried her face in Long Siju's chest. Long Siju gazed at her long, fluttering eyelashes and brushed her long hair to the back with his large hand. Her soft, silky hair felt cold to the touch, and it was exceptionally comforting to run his fingers through it. He absolutely adored every single part of this little thing. She was so exquisite that he could not get his hands off her. Her sudden appearance in his life was definitely an accident, but it was an accident that he was very contented with. Long Siju could barely control himself. He lowered his head and kissed her small, cherry dot-like lips. He slipped his large hand under her shirt and started to caress her body. By the time the car stopped, both of them were panting heavily, and Su Qianxuan's clothes had become nearly undone. She looked at the man in front of her who was still neatly dressed. Not a single crease was on his suit. She pouted glumly. It's so unfair. Long Siju personally helped her put her clothes back on and tidied her long hair. When he made sure that she was ready, he brought her out of the car. Su Qianxuan only realized then that they had arrived at the cruise ship where they first met. She was rather curious as to why Long Siju brought her there. When they stepped out of the elevator, Su Qianxuan raised her head and saw a man and a woman flirting in the corridor a few feet ahead of them. The man was whispering into the woman's ear, and in response to that, the woman gave him a light slap in a playful, coquettish manner. The man also had his large hand around her waist. Su Qianxuan quickly lowered her head and did not dare to look at them anymore. Long Siju gazed at the shy young woman in his arm and held her even closer to him. Ju, what took you so long? Su Qianxuan only realized that the seemingly indecent man was Tang Zui the moment his voice rang out. Hey, chick. We meet again. Did you miss me? Su Qianxuan said nothing. She furrowed her eyebrows and was apparently surprised to find out that Tang Zui was such an insolent man. She then looked at his female companion, who was only wearing a black, skin-tight mini dress. The woman had an amazing figure, but one could tell right away that she was surely not a decent young woman. Su Qianxuan tried to distance himself from Tang Zui without being aware of it and leaned against Long Siju. Her small, unintentional gesture pleased Long Siju. Tang Zui, on the other hand, was dejected. Chick, what do you mean by that? Are you looking down on me? Su Qianxuan immediately shook her head. No. Don't jump to conclusions. Deep down, she knew that even though Tang Zui seemed indecent, he actually treated her quite well. If Tang Zui found out that Su Qianxuan saw him in that light, he would be utterly devastated. After all, she considered him indecent. I've asked Yi Gu to take you to the room, Long Siju said as he lowered his head and fixed his gaze on Su Qianxuan. Su Qianxuan raised her head, took a quick glance at him and nodded obediently. Chick, this is my gift to you. You'll need it tonight. Tang Zui handed her a fancy-looking shopping bag. I don't need it. Su Qianxuan immediately turned it down. She did not want to accept Tang Zui's gift, as her intuition told her that the shopping bag probably contained an indecent item. I'm giving this to you, so just take it. You'll like it. Tang Zui forcibly shoved the shopping bag into the young woman's hands. He did not forget to wink at her as he did so. Su Qianxuan held the shopping bag in her arms rather glumly. Long Siju fixed his gaze on her again for quite a while, before he walked away in another direction with Tang Zui following after. When the beautiful and curvaceous woman walked past Su Qianxuan, she shot the latter a look of disdain and straightened her back to accentuate her ample bosom. Su Qianxuan was rendered speechless. "Come with me," Yi Gu came over and said flatly. Su Qianxuan could not help but glance at Long Siju and Tang Zui again as they walked away. She almost collided with Yi Gu when she stepped forward. She wanted to apologize to him, but he had already begun to walk forward. She had no choice but to swallow her words. Su Qianxuan saw his cold expression and suddenly recalled the previous incident in the car, where Long Siju forced himself upon her in Yi Gu's presence. She bit her lower lip softly. Yi Gu must be looking down on me now. Su Qianxuan kept her head down as she walked forward. Therefore, she was completely unaware that the man in front of her had already stopped walking, and she ran directly into him.